What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Draft Hub. Today, we are going to be taking a look at my picks for each game of week 2 of the 2025 NFL season. Now, you could see here, if you look at the overall record, I am cheating a little bit here. I'm recording this as the Monday Night Football game is going on, so I'm 11 and 4, 11 and 4 this week. Probably going to wind up being 11 and 5, honestly. At the time I'm recording, it's almost on the stroke of halftime between the Bears and the Vikings, and the Bears kind of look miles and miles better than the Vikings right now. But the game is still close, so I'm going to hold out hope. But I do want to get this out to you guys on Tuesdays, so I am going to be recording these most likely as the Monday Night Football game is going on. So we are 11 and 4, could be either 12 and 4 or 11 and 5 when it's all said and done. But we're going to get into the week 2 matchups here. So we have the Green Bay Packers and the Washington Commanders here. And I don't know. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Green Bay Packers 27-13 victory over the Lions was probably the most impressive win of the week, because I know 27-13 sounds very, very close, but I mean, not too close. It's 2 scores, but the Packers really kind of blew the Detroit Lions out of the water, and Micah Parsons already is an X factor on that defense. The offense looked very good. Jordan Love looked good. The run game looked good. Everything looked good for the Green Bay Packers. A very impressive victory. On the other side, you have the Washington Commanders, who are coming off of a 21-6 victory over the Giants. They didn't really have to do too much. I wasn't overall completely impressed with the Commanders. I thought Jaden Daniels played good. The running game was better than expected, in my opinion. Deebo Samuel had a really nice debut for them. I believe he had 7 catches for 77 yards, and he had a rushing touchdown as well. So that's that's a decent overall performance. I guess they didn't really have to do too much. The defense kind of held it down. Russell Wilson was held to like 16 of 37 or 19 of 37, something like that. So yeah, they did their job on both sides of the ball for the most part. But I think I'm going to go with the Packers here in the first Thursday night game of the year. Yeah, well, not really. Thursday night football, rather, other than kickoff. But I'm going to go with the Packers here. I think overall, I think they're going to be the team to beat in the NFC North this year. I truly do. They look really awesome. And if they could start their year going 2-0 against the Washington Commanders and the Detroit Lions, then there's going to be few teams that are going to stand in their way of making it very far in the playoffs, or in the division, rather. Moving on to the next game here, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Cincinnati Bengals. So both teams, again, 1-0. The Bengals, even though it's so funny, because we name a quarterback that is worse in week 1 than Joe Burrow? I mean, really, what did the Bengals had like 7 total yards in the second half and still won? I think that's like the first time in 25 years that a team had that few yards in the second half and actually still won a game. They could thank the rookie kicker from the Browns for that victory. But yes, a 17-16 win over the lowly Cleveland Browns is not all that inspiring. But hey, a win is a win in week 1 for the Cincinnati Bengals. So I fully expect Joe Burrow to turn around this week and throw like 4 touchdowns and 300 yards and all that kind of good stuff. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are coming off of a relatively impressive win in their own right. It was a long game because it was severely delayed, but a 26-10 win over the Carolina Panthers. Really dominant on both sides of the ball. The run game was exceptional for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well, and that's something that I feel like really needs to get going. So they really think high of Bashal Tutin, because they just traded Tank Bigsby a couple hours ago at the time of recording. So it's Travis Etienne and Bashal Tutin going forward as the 1-2 punch in that backfield. But this is kind of a tough one to me, honestly. Going off of the week 1 performances, I would be quick to say that the Jaguars probably, were the better overall team. But Cincinnati at home, you got Joe Burrow. I'm thinking last week was kind of sort of a fluke in terms of, Jamar Chase not really doing a whole lot. T. Higgins not really doing a whole lot. Same thing with Burrow. I think that they're going to bounce back. They're going to slowly but surely get back up to speed like they usually do. It usually takes them a couple of weeks, I feel like, every single year. But I feel like they're going up against a defense that, even though they only give 10 points, is still a little bit on the softer side as of right now, before a lot of their younger players fully develop. So I am going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. Reluctantly, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals over the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you have the Dallas Cowboys hosting the New York Giants here. And I think the Cowboys actually looked really good against the Eagles on opening night. So the game started off like gangbusters. It was 21-20 at halftime. It wound up only being 24-20. But to be fair, the lightning storms kind of really took the wind out of both teams' sails. It took them a lot to even get back up to speed, and by the time that both teams got back to speed, the game was basically over at that point. So the Cowboys, I think, looked really good. I think Dak looked really good. He didn't put the ball in harm's way. CD Lamb with 4 drops, which is extremely uncharacteristic for him. I think Javonte Williams actually looked pretty well. The run game was respectable, considering that they were relying on Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams, 2 unks essentially. They were relying on with maybe one good knee between the two of them. But a lot of positives to take away from this game from Dallas, especially away from home. Now that they're hosting the New York Giants, who, like I said, kind of really didn't look that great on the offensive side of the ball. Tyrone Tracy couldn't get anything going. Cam Scatterbo couldn't really get anything going. The pass game was all out of whack. I think that the Cowboys are going to get their first win of the season rather comfortably against the visiting New York Giants. Moving on, we have the next one here. We got the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. Now, I don't know. Really, I'll be quite honest with you. I watched the Detroit Lions game, and we just talked about it with the Green Bay Packers. They got basically dominated. First off, one of the most hilarious stat lines I've ever seen was Jahmyr Gibbs having 10 catches for 31 yards. I think that is one of the funnier stat lines you'll ever see in a football game. 10 catches from a running back only resulting in 31 yards is hilarious. But I feel like the overall game plan was really conservative. There was a lot of inside runs. I feel like they weren't really utilizing Jahmyr Gibbs' speed. They weren't using the overall power of David Montgomery. I feel like Jared Goff was almost like protected. I didn't see a lot of downfield shots. Just a weird. I know that this was their first game without Ben Johnson and Tanner Engstrand. I I don't know, but the offensive coordinator was on the staff last year, so he had to pick up something, right? I don't know. The offensive game plan seemed very, very conservative to me. Very, very weird. I can't speak much about the Chicago Bears because the Chicago Bears are currently still playing right now as I am recording this. It is still only 7-3 with 5 minutes left in the second quarter while I am recording this. So the Bears do look good. It looks like Caleb Williams is, I mean, the super small sample size, but it looks like Caleb Williams is, slowly but surely developing a lot better. He scored his first rushing touchdown of his career. He's looked pretty good. The ball has been on time, on the money. But I do think the Detroit Lions, I'm going to say that the week one was a fluke. I don't know what was going on there. I don't know if they just respected the Green Bay Packers defense maybe a little bit too much, but I am going to say that it is going to be the Detroit Lions coming away with the victory. I think it's going to be closer than we're used to with these two teams playing each other the last few years. Yet the Los Angeles Rams at the Tennessee Titans next, and the Rams defense looked really good against a very powerful passing offense for the Houston Texans. And that's really, really encouraging considering that the Rams didn't really replenish their secondary in the draft or the offseason. Tennessee kind of got let down a little bit. There was a play that Brian Callahan could have challenged. There was 2 crucial drops on the last drive of the game. It was an ugly game, and it was kind of a game that we all knew was kind of going to be ugly. Cam Ward with a very, very difficult debut against a very, very stout Denver Broncos defense. 20-12 was the final score, but they were in it the whole game, and the defense gave Bo Nix and Denver a run for their money. To be fair, they forced 3 turnovers out of Bo Nix, 2 interceptions, and a fumble loss. The defense could keep them in a lot of games until Cam Ward finds his footing in the NFL. But I do think the Los Angeles Rams are completely legit. Puka Nacua, 10 catches, 130 yards. He was awesome. Matt Stafford, I feel like he's going to take a couple of weeks to kind of get back in the groove. He was relatively broken up in the preseason for the most part. I do think the Rams come into Tennessee. I think this is another ugly game, I'll be honest with you. I think the Tennessee Titans defense is that good. I think the Rams defense is that good. And both offenses look like they're kind of sputtering out of the gate right now. So I'm going to go with the Rams with the away victory at the Tennessee Titans. You have the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins, and I'll be honest with you guys. Giving up 33 points to a Daniel Jones-led Indianapolis Colts offense is absolutely disgraceful. I think the Miami Dolphins are going to wind up with a top 5 pick this year. And then you have the New England Patriots that defensively they played well, offensively they couldn't get it going. But we see that a lot with teams in week 1. So I'm not going to look too much into it. I think that's a relatively disappointing loss in week 1 against the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that they're going to bounce back away from home, and I think that they're going to beat the rival Miami Dolphins. Moving on to the next game, you have the San Francisco 49ers and the New Orleans Saints. And I'll be quite honest with you guys, this might be a little bit closer than we think, because as of right now, George Kittle will be out for this game, and Brock Purdy is also doubtful for this game. So this is the unfortunate part about making these picks on Tuesday. But even with that being said, I do feel like the offense really wasn't terrible for the New Orleans Saints. It's just, I feel like Alvin Kamara, even though, one catch for Kamara, 45 rushing yards, he was kind of bottled up. Chris Olave he's just receiving hospital ball after hospital ball. Another head injury probably for that poor man. He should probably hang it up sooner rather than later, honestly. So I think 96-4 is kind of crazy because the New Orleans Saints still have some dogs on their defense, and they do play sound defense. And San Francisco is coming into New Orleans. So even with Mac Jones probably at the helm, Christian McCaffrey looked good. He had, 9 catches. He had 70 or so rushing yards. He looked good. Despite the calf strain, quote unquote, he looked good. I think if they could rely on him, I think he'll be more than fine. So I am reluctantly at first going to go with the 49ers over the Saints here in this one. Then you have, oh my God, my New York Jets against the Buffalo Bills. I shouldn't be as heartbroken as I am because I'm going into this season with no expectations, but damn it, it's hard when the New York Jets offense looked as good as it did yesterday and they still cannot win a game. It's just so unfortunate. I mean, I've never seen a more Jets performance in the fourth quarter where the Jets literally dropped 2 hand-wrapped interceptions to their DBs. Brandon Stevens had an absolute stinker of a debut. He gave up 5 catches for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. He could have made it all up. Rodgers was getting pressured. He threw the ball out to the right. Stevens, for some reason, goes for a dive to intercept the ball where he probably could have just stayed on his feet and probably ran it all the way back for a pick 6, essentially ending the game. The ball slipped through his hands. Then one of the more miraculous catches I've ever seen where Sauce Gardner knocks the ball out of, I don't remember what the wide receiver was. He knocks the ball out of the receiver's hands and DK Metcalf is laying on the floor and the ball pops right into his hands on the floor. That ultimately led to Chris Boswell's game-winning 60-yard field goal. That is the most Jets loss I've ever seen. The Bills with an unbelievable comeback. This might be a very high-scoring affair because both defenses look like they can't stop a nosebleed right now. The New York Jets defense giving up 230 passing yards and 4 touchdowns to an ancient Aaron Rodgers is crazy. I mean, I'll give the Bills a slight pass because they were playing a very, very high-powered offense. I think this game might be a little bit closer than we expect, but I think Josh Allen and James Cook and Keon Coleman, who had a big breakout game, are just going to be too much for this New York Jets team. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills over the Jets here. Moving on, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we just talked about, and the Seattle Seahawks. Now, this is an interesting game. I do think the Seahawks defense is going to give the Steelers quite a bit more trouble than the Jets defense did, which is interesting to say because the Jets run defense was actually good. And the Jets' pass rush was really good. It was just, coming up with timely stops that they just couldn't get. But I think the Seahawks defense actually played very, very well against the San Francisco 49ers. A pretty heartbreaking loss there at the end where I didn't actually see the whole clip, or I saw it briefly. Was it the ball got knocked straight into a 49ers defender's hands for the game-winning interception? Or popped out of a receiver's hands into the defender's hands. It was something crazy like that, which naturally, what a Seattle Seahawks way to lose. This is going to be a tough one for the Steelers, to be quite honest with you. I think that JSN actually looked really good. I think Cooper Kupp looked okay. Sam Darnold, for the most part, played pretty well. I'm going to see if I can pull up those stats because that was one box score that I really didn't look at when it's all said and done. Yeah, Sam Darnold really didn't play that well, actually. 150 passing yards, none too inspiring there. But JSN, he had 150 passing yards, but JSN had 9 catches for 124 yards. I don't know why I thought Cooper Kupp did better than he did, but yeah, 2 catches for 15 yards. He obviously didn't do as good as I initially thought. But yeah, all right. So never mind. I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers here, even though I think their defense left a lot to be desired out there. I think Jalen Ramsey came up with a couple excellent plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers in his debut, especially the game-winning hit against Garrett Wilson, where Justin Fields got out of pressure. He found a open Garrett Wilson, and Jalen Ramsey timed a absolutely beautiful hit, helmet on ball, popped that ball right out. It was a beautiful game-ending play. I'm going to go with the Steelers over the Seahawks here. Then you have the Ravens and the Browns. I know that the Browns played inspired football in week 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals, but I feel like the Baltimore, especially after the way that the Baltimore Ravens lost 41-40 to the Buffalo Bills after being up 2 scores or more. What were they up 40-25 with 2 scores with 5 minutes left in the game and wind up losing by 1 point. Yeah, I think that they're going to be out for blood. I mean, like I said, Cleveland played a really good game. Defensively, they were good. Offensively, they did enough to win the game. They put their kicker in positions where he could have won them the game, and he did not. The Ravens, I mean, how often do you score 40 points in an NFL game and you still lose? So the Ravens, again, I'm going to give their defense a slight pass because they're playing a very potent offense in a Josh Allen-led team. Josh Allen, James Cook, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid. There's a lot of weapons to account for on the Buffalo Bills team. So I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens pretty easily here. I'll say that that's my lock of the week. But in the NFC North is very tricky. I feel like any given week, any team in the NFC North could win. The Denver Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts here, 2 1-0 teams. Denver going into Indianapolis. Bo Nix did not play well in his first start in his sophomore season after having a very, very good rookie campaign. Didn't play too great. But I'm going to say, like I said before, the Tennessee Titans defense is stingy. It is pretty good against the pass. Don't forget they have L'Jarius Sneed. They just signed Armani Hooker to a 3-year, $48 million extension as well. The pass rush is good. They have T'Vondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons on the inside. So, tough. Indianapolis Colts, they played good. Their defense played really good. Cam Bynum came up with a big interception. Kenny Moore came up with a big interception as well. Laiatu Latu, the defensive end, came up with an interception. Just a really horrible showing from the Miami Dolphins is really only way I could say it. I do think Denver, with their stout defense, does come into Indianapolis, and I do think they get a win. I think Bo Nix bounces back very well against this Indianapolis Colts defense. I do think they get the win over Daniel Jones. I think the Denver Broncos defense is going to give Daniel Jones fits instead of the Miami Dolphins defense giving him wide open lanes to throw to and wide open lanes to rush for touchdowns. So I'm going to go with the Broncos here over the Indianapolis Colts. Moving on, you have the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Carolina Panthers, and the Cardinals looked as complete of a team as I think they've looked in quite some time. 20-13, they beat the Saints. I know it's not crazy. Offensively, Marvin Harrison Jr. came down with a touchdown. He looked pretty good. Trey McBride had 6 catches. Kyler Murray did okay. James Conner had a touchdown as well. They were all right. Like I said, it's going to take these teams time to get up to speed. The Panthers, on the other hand, just looked awful. Bryce Young looked terrible. Chuba Hubbard looked okay. Most of his big-time stats came in garbage time. Ted McMillan looked nice, which I thought was a really nice boost for the offense. But Xavier Legette just continues to be kind of a real big disappointment now in his first game in his sophomore season. Just did not look great either. Bryce Young kind of reverting back to the old Bryce Young, not the Bryce Young that we saw at the end of the season that was playing really, really good football. Again, could just be a week 1 thing. Maybe he could bounce back this week. But give me the Arizona Cardinals over the Panthers here in this matchup in Arizona. Oh, then you have a rematch of, didn't realize this was week 2. This is a tough one for both teams here. You have the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, and this is tough. I can't see a world where the Kansas City Chiefs start 0-2. I also don't think it's going to be that easy for the Philadelphia Eagles. Something might be up. I can't see a reason why, out of the blue, the Philadelphia Eagles would just trade for Tank Bigsby. I want to kind of monitor the health of Saquon Barkley over the next couple weeks to see if the Philadelphia Eagles know something that we don't. Maybe it could be an injury to Will Shipley too. It could just be something like that. I could be way overthinking it, but yeah, the Chiefs uh, obviously missed Rashee Rice. It looked like because damn. I actually didn't get a chance to watch this game on Friday, but yeah, it looked like their offense was kind of still conservative. I don't know. You had Patrick Mahomes who could air the ball out like 70 yards downfield. How did Xavier Worthy end up with literally 0 yards? He had one touch the entire game, no yards. He had one target. I don't know what happened. Noah Gray caught more passes than Xavier Worthy. You could have sat on your couch and watched that game and caught the same amount of passes that Xavier Worthy did. Put that into perspective. But Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, we're just kicking it back to like 2018, I guess, with some of these players that were big time contributors. But yeah, I don't know. It's the Chiefs at Arrowhead. I'm sitting here blanking. I'm making these picks just as long as you're. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'm going to go with my gut on this one. I think Philadelphia didn't really look all that terrific, to be quite honest with you, either. For the most part, I think the passing game was kind of disconnected. The Chiefs do have, despite giving up 300 plus yards to Justin Herbert, they do have a good pass defense. I'm going to go with the Chiefs here. I don't think that there's a world where I could see the Kansas City Chiefs starting off 0-2, to be quite honest with you. You have the Vikings and the Falcons in the next one here. And again, this one is a little bit to be determined, but the Falcons looked really good. I know that they lost, but Michael Penix Jr. did everything that he could to get the Atlanta Falcons into a winning position. A missed kick by Younghoe Koo at the end of the fourth quarter cost them a chance to go to overtime. They lost 23-20. Chase McLaughlin missing the extra point on the Emeka Ibuka game-winning touchdown with less than a minute to go really kind of left the door open for it. And Michael Penix Jr. kind of effortlessly took that team down the field and set him up for a very makeable, 40-yard field goal. So I don't really know what happened there. I feel like he's a great kicker, but he really misses some like sitters and just in really, really tough times. But yeah, that was a tough divisional loss to start the season for the Atlanta Falcons. The Minnesota Vikings being at home. I don't know. I think Penix is this offense looks good. Bijan looks awesome. Yep. Like I said, Penix looks good. Drake London had 8 catches as well. I don't know, to be honest with you. It's 10-6, by the way. So we're talking about this. The offense for the Minnesota Vikings looks a little conservative right now, to be quite honest with you. I don't know. I think I'm going to have to go with the Falcons here, even though it's away from home. They play in a dome too. I don't really think it makes too much of a difference. I think this Falcons team is really good. I think that week 1 loss was brutal, but I think that they're going to bounce back nicely. I'm going to take Atlanta here. Moving on, you have Tampa Bay and Houston. Man, Houston's offense just really couldn't get going. I think Tampa kind of goes in there and has their way with them, to be honest with you. 3 50-plus yard field goals from Kaimi Fairbairn was all that they could muster. They couldn't get a single touchdown. The run game is non-existent for them. Dara Ogunbowale led them. No, he didn't lead them, but at first he led them in rushing yards. Nick Chubb. I just don't believe in this running game. Woody Marks, Dara Ogunbowale, Nick Chubb. Even when Joe Mixon comes back, it's just a backfield full of unks, to be honest with you. Everyone's over 30 in that backfield besides for Woody Marks, and him himself is a 24-year-old rookie. So, it's just very uninspiring. I think as long as the Houston Texans parade around a one-dimensional offense, I think they're really going to struggle against teams like Tampa Bay who can score. Now, the Texans' defense kept them in that game, and I think the Texans' defense will keep them in games for the foreseeable future. But until they figure out how to balance the offensive game plan or how to strike fear into a defensive front seven of a different team, I think they're really going to struggle. And I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a really good team. I think they are so multifaceted on offense. Bucky Irving is such a weapon out of the backfield. Emeka Ibuka looked awesome. Mike Evans is still there. Cade Otton is around. Their offensive line is really good. That could combat that very, very tough Houston Texans front four. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers away from home here in this one. And then the final game, you have the Las Vegas Raiders, who went into New England and won 20-13. A surprising result, in my opinion. I kind of counted out the Raiders way too quick in that one, but 370 passing yards for the most part for Geno Smith. He was awesome. And the Chargers beating the Chiefs in Sao Paulo, Brazil was very awesome as well. The defense looked legit. They kind of contained Patrick Mahomes for the most part. They contained some of the fastest wide receivers in the NFL. I think the Chargers are actually for real this year, and I think as long as they continue to boast weapons that Justin Herbert could actually hit down the field, I think this offense is going to be really wide open. I think Amarion Hampton played well enough. They're going to get him acclimated into playing every single down. I think the Chargers, again, away from home, technically, are going to go into the Raiders, into Las Vegas, and go into Las Vegas and beat the Raiders. I feel bad picking against the Raiders seemingly every single week, but until I see a little bit more consistency, yeah, I'm going to have to pass, especially since the Chargers look so awesome on both sides of the ball on Friday night. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There are my 16 picks for week 2. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Why don't you comment your week 1 record and we can compare. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one.